Well, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Consolidated Research Group in Medieval Studies, Space, Power and Culture at the University of Lleida, I warmly welcome you to this new and final session of the fifth edition of the seminar series Connecta and Mitjana, titled Institutional Identities and Representation of Collective Solidarities, 9th until 16th century. This seminar is part of a research project funded by the Spanish Ministry of Science called Collective Identities and Group Solidarities in the Late Middle Ages, led by Professor Flosel Sabater, who is also the director of our research group. In the past sessions, we have explored many aspects of social and institutional identity in medieval Europe. This second part of the series has focused in particular on late Middle Ages and the beginning of the early Middle period. Today, we are pleased to welcome Professor Jaime Moraleda from the University of Castilla-La Mancha. Professor Moraleda is a senior lecturer, profesor contratado doctor in art history at the Faculty of Humanities in Toledo. He received his PhD in 2016 with a dissertation titled Illuminated Liturgical Manuscripts for the Cathedral of Toledo in the 16th and 17th centuries, from the Middle Ages to modernity. His research focuses on miniature painting and illuminated manuscripts in Europe during the 15th to 17th centuries. He also works on Christian iconography and more recently on travel, collecting, and cultural heritage in 19th century Spain. He is a member of the research group Toledo and Italy, artistic relations between the 16th and 19th centuries, and also part of the team Ius Illuminatum at the Instituto de Estudios Medievais from the Universidad de Nova de Lisboa, where he studies legal illuminated manuscripts produced in or connected to Toledo and its patrons. From 2008 to 2011, he was a researcher at the Hispanic Society of America, working with Spanish illuminated manuscripts and focusing on changes in the iconography and decoration between the 15th and 16th centuries. He is currently director of the Confucius Institute at the University of Castilla-La Mancha, created in collaboration with Nanchang University, and since 2023, he's also mobility coordinator at the Faculty of Humanities. His lecture today is titled Kings, Nobles, Judges, and Witnesses, Models of Identity and Their Representation in the Legal Text of the 16th Century. In this presentation, Professor Moraleda will speak about the executory letters of nobility, cartas ejecutorias de hidalguía, official legal texts used by nobles family in the 16th century Spain to confirm and defend the noble status. These documents were carefully made and visually impressive. They often include portraits, coats of arms, family trees, and religious images, which help to express and strengthen noble identities and social legitimacy. Thank you very much, Jaime, for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Carlos, for your presentation. Wait a moment, one more person include. So thank you very much for your presentation, Carlos. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to participate and share some reflections on my research. And thanks everybody. We are in a small family to be here this afternoon. The research is part of my work following the illumination books and the iconography in their pages. Especially at the beginning, I worked in liturgical books, and now I'm changing in a different way about the illumination in official legal text. But it's not a complete study, so I will continue include new reference in the future. The chosen title is Kings, Nobles, Judges, and Witnesses, Models of Identity and their representation in the Spanish legal text of the 16th century. According to my research, I study the last period of the medieval age and the beginning of the modern age. So the connection between both. In this case, especially at the beginning of the 16th century. We will explore the different identities and how they are represented in Spanish legal documents. So now I'm going to share with you the PowerPoint, the presentation, where you can understand better the different models and the quality of the representation with high splendor of colors and rich design. So let me have a moment to share with you the PowerPoint. When you see the presentation, if you can see me.
Yes.
Is ready?
Yes, Jaime, yes.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Okay. Well, the rich variety of Spanish legal texts that confirm nobility within the social elite holds a chapter of great interest from both historical and artistic perspective during the 16th century. Specifically, referring to the cartas ejecutorias, I mean, uh, illuminated legal documents very common in Spain during the 16th and 17th centuries. This is one of Carta Ejecutoria, and you can see more in advance with similar decoration, change, for example, the style. But in both cases, in all cases, the text is in the middle with decoration about different symbols. In advance, I'm going to explain. His illuminated works reflect a historical context in which a segment of society publicly displayed its noble status to preserve its privilege. For example, no pay the public taxes. To this end, he used various key elements, such as portrait galleries, coats of arms, and genealogical reference, and in addition to the devotional value expressed through the iconographic representation of religious models. Its families requesting recognition of noble status needed to display the design of their coat of arms, often a new creation because they were part of the lower nobility, so without historical symbols. In this case, you see the family in connection with different saints and the coat of arms. But maybe in this case, it's a new creation because I told you these kind of families never had these symbols in the past. As you can see in the examples, religious scenes are part of the novel scenery in the portraits of this century, normally like a family devotion. Actually, was very common different iconographies of Virgin Mary, you see in the moment, crucifixions, or some saints according with the individual devotion or family devotion. Because these kind of documents are family documents, so include a lot of singular information and iconographies. These artistic expressions were complemented by the usual illuminated royal image, as well as the presence of judges and witnesses required for the final ruling. So the first identity we study is the image of the King of Castile or the King of Spain, depends the period. In conclusion, models of social identity from visual rhetoric, each one with characteristics that differentiated them through clothing, expressions, and other speaking symbols. If the main objective of this speech is to analyze the symbolic value of the import of the portrait in Spanish legal documents, let us pause for a moment on the definition that Sebastián de Covarrubias includes for the term in his dictionary. This is the first page of the publication, whose entry reads as follows. First of all, in Spanish, retrato, la figura contrahecha de alguna persona principal y de cuenta cuya efigie y semejanza es justo quede por memoria a los siglos venideros. That is, in English, portrait, the figure of some important person whose effigy and likeness shall rightly remain as a memory for centuries to come. With these words, we interpret the development and use of this artistic genre in relation to the sphere of a social elite who, considering it appropriate to their class, contributed to its memory as a great proposal of humanity's thought. The set of legal tests that confirmed the validity of a part of society during the modern age acquired relevance in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, both for their quality and quantity. At this time, these documents, after years of neglect by researchers, are being studied from multiple perspectives: historical, legal, and artistic. The chapter of cartas ejecutorias, or official legal documents, and specifically to the illuminators who contributed to their ornamentation, has attracted growing interest in recent years, with studies focusing on the analysis of examples from different local and regional contexts, especially in Granada and Valladolid, the two most important Spanish cities about this kind of documents, because they were the cities where the judicial procedures for these cases were carried out. Scientific meeting and research groups addressing this issue are also important. One example is the Ius Illuminatum group for Nova University in Lisbon, whose studies on legal documents are giving significant results. A meeting on art, nobility, and document was also recently organized in Valladolid, as well as an exhibition at the National Nobility Archive in Toledo about royal representation in legal document, with the title Imago Regis, as you can see in the image. So, an interesting exhibition to follow the evolution of the royal image. In this case, we can notice the evolution, for example, between the official legal documents of the Habsburg dynasty than the documents for the Bourbon dynasty. So this exhibition is very clear to show what are the different, of course, for example, in style and the different shape. The prominence of the illuminated pages of each of these documents and the choice of models selected support their origins and an historical context marked by a sector of society that publicly displayed its noble status. It also confirms the importance placed on both the content of the ruling and its ornamentation. In short, we are talking about an object of social distinction. I mean, it's a luxury item, it's a luxury object to show the importance of the families. In this context, following the imitation of fashion and the gestual rhetoric most typical of the representatives of the monarchy, a series of portraits appear as an introduction to the legal text, all with them a devotional framework that show the antiquity of those families. The original document, I saw first, resulting from the legal process, was delivered to the interested party once verified, and a paper copy was left in the institutional archive. This initial document had not decoration, as you can notice in the picture. It didn't require symbols or representation of identities. The legal requirements for the original document contained the necessary value to prove the noble status, although in most cases a carefully handwritten and ornate copy was required to demonstrate the family's noble status. In this example, the second page is very simple, but you can notice the difference between the first, without decoration, than the second with borders, with vegetables, the capital letter with more decoration. So the first is just for the archive, and the second one for the family to show the power everywhere. The others with decoration were commissioned and kept by who the patrons of the statu quo of the privileged class. These copies are now distributed in public and private collections around the world. It's not easy to follow all examples because nowadays a lot of examples are in private collections, not only in public libraries or public archives. A lot of them are in private families, in private collections. So the work, the research is really hard to have a lot of examples to compare different shapes. Sorry. This image shows the collection of codices from the Hispanic Society of America. The exhibition was in the Prado Museum years ago. But in the American institution, I had the opportunity to conduct a research stay and begin my investigation into the decoration of cartas ejecutorias. It was my first time to change my research. I told you at the beginning of my research, I looking for a lot of liturgical books according with the relationship with the Cathedral of Toledo, but change after years, looking for another kinds of books with illuminations. Okay, so in the Hispanic Society, there are a lot of books, a lot of official legal documents to continue my research. About ornamental evolution, since the end of the 15th century, I have already defended the value of illuminations produced during the modern period, beyond the beauty of medieval works, of course. Once again, I believe there is a need to revalue this series of illuminated legal codex, also from an artistic perspective, which is often underestimated. With the example examined directly and select for the occasion, we will study into the way family members are represented, whose portraits confirm the need to include symbolic tools like rhetorical models to consolidate their fame and power. Since the end of the 15th century, the models of cartas ejecutorias or similar documents, legal documents, as we know it today, began to develop specifically what we call the luxury codex. As we can see in the page, one example follow the models of the Ghent and Bruges School in Belgium. The second follows the candeliere decoration typical of the Renaissance. Both pages are made it in similar period at the beginning of the 16th century, but in Spain, the first years of the 16th century share similar decoration with different schools, Flemish schools or Italian, as you can notice in these pages. The internal content of the document was divided into a series of chapters, headed by an initial mention of the authority of the king, under whose mandate the sentence had been issued. In this page, you can see, for example, the portrait of Felipe II, the king of Spain, in this illumination. The portrait began to be included at the beginning of the document, primarily within the first letter of the introduction, as found, for example, in the Ejecutoria for Juan y Pedro de Guzmán in 1455, which the portrait of Henry IV, King of Castile. This royal model varied in size and location throughout the period of the Habsburg dynasty. For example, continue in the 16th century with the image of Charles V, or continue with Felipe II. But the position of the image of the portrait of the king changed, and not only the first page, include at the end of the document. So it's very interesting to know what is the moment when change the position of the image. Until arriving at a model that with variations include the main symbols of the king. For example, the throne, the crown, the sword, scepter, and the globe. So include in the advance different symbols to represent the power of the monarchy. But I repeat, no, at the beginning, the chain is very important because it's the conclusion. In the conclusion, at the end of the official document, is when include the image of the king. As the century progressed, a notable ornamental evolution took place. The initial simplicity disappeared to incorporate a greater wealth of iconography research of rhetorical value, as we can see in the Ejecutoria for Pedro Sánchez de Berrio in 1587. In this example, or with this example, you can understand better the symbolic of this kind of document. It's not only a document to include the rule about the family, the rule about the noble family. It's a very luxury object to show everywhere. Following the portraits and visual rhetoric in performances of nobility, among the common symbolic references, we find the design of the family coat of arms as the main references to noble status. Its importance grew as the 16th century progresses, when it occupied the old page of the first or second folio. In this case, as you see in the computer, at the beginning of the 16th century or at the end of the 15th century, the symbol of the family was at the beginning, in the capital letter or in a corner or around the border of the page. The evolution is the next. Yeah, in the middle of the 16th century, the coat of arms is in the half of the page, bigger than the first, but at the end of the century occupied the whole page of the first or second folio. So that's the evolution according with the importance of the symbols. Along with heraldic tradition, in the most elaborate cases, portraits of patron were incorporated either alongside the coat of arms or kneeling before a religious scene. This is the example, another one. Here begins a series of examples that show novel identity according to royal-like models. Sometimes patrons are present in the company or family saints, as we see in the ejecutoria for Antonio y Gabriel de Viana in 1577, or pious scenes like the ones displayed in the ejecutoria for Luis de Figueroa in 1570. In both cases, with a high-quality painting, techniques and composition reminiscent a large format works. This kind of representation of the patron with the image of Jesus Christ on the cross could be similar than a big canvas, oil on canvas in another position. So this kind of documents became in very important art to show the religion and the devotion of the family. These resorts, which we also see in medieval tradition models such as the altarpiece in the Condestable Chapel in Toledo Cathedral, for example. We have many examples at the end of the 15th century where the portraits of Álvaro de Luna and his wife are presented by Saint Francis and Saint Anthony. So I repeat, this kind of image is a very symbolical use to show the antique family we are propose for the institutions, okay, the local institutions. We observe how the illuminators are in contact with the pictorial traditions. Even in these years of the early 16th century, they worked on both projects, large format paintings and illuminated codices in both ways. So it's not only a contact, it's not only a connection with the models. The connection is because the painters in that period use both cases, paint in large format and paint in a small codex. Among the most frequently repeated iconography motifs are the scene of the crucifixion, Marian models, and devotional references of great symbolic significance, such as the frequent presence of the iconography of the Apostle St. James, whose relationship with the origin of the Hispanic monarchy provide added value. Not only one family devotion with a saint. In this case, it's not only for family devotion. It's because represent the value of the historic of the monarchy of Spain or Castile monarchy. So the importance of this image about the representation of St. James is very common in the official legal document of this period. The frequent presence of portraits makes them a key tool within a pictorial genre that elevated virtuous people above ordinary men and women, as Vicente Carducho wrote in his treatise, Diálogos de la Pintura, in 1633. Treatise where the author set forth the social distinction of the portrait as an exponent exponent of the privileged classes. This destination or this distinction, made them common in painted documents, reinforcing the idea of a status, even if it was of a very low or even devious category. The lower nobility was represented as the high aristocracy or royalty, although they would never have been able to wear clothes or symbols like those that appear in their portraits. For example, in this image, this kind of dresses or this kind of clothes maybe only used for these documents. Maybe this kind of family in the I told you in the lower nobility never had this kind of dress, but they have to use here as a symbol of the power, as a symbol of the status. Include, for example, the cross of the Order of Saint or Saint James. Okay, symbol, another symbol about the importance of the nobility. As you can see in this ejecutoria for Diego de Losada, the portrait shows them dressed in Spanish fashion, with one of the most representative emblems of nobility of this period, the sword, with a golden hilt. In addition to its defensive value, the sword, let me here, you can see the sword, look at the image, with the golden hilt here. Is represent a very important symbol for him. Is an object representative of social status with which gave it a prominent role in court portraits. The range of portraits found in Cartas Ejecutorias reflect the significant development from the second half of the 16th century, with artists such as Alonso Sánchez Coello, Juan Pantoja de la Cruz, Bartolomé González, or Vicente Carducho. Specifically, the portraits we are discussing adopt the fashion and characteristics of court portrait, with the peculiarity of often showing as the singular representation of collective portraits. In this case, it's very, very easy to understand. It's not only the portrait of one person, it's the family portrait. Why? Because this is not only a portrait for one, it's a family use, not exclusive to one person. But it's really interesting because you can see the fathers, the parents, and the sons of the family, all of them with similar symbols to show everywhere and forever the importance of the status. Most of the male portraits reflect the courtly fashion of the period, known as Spanish costume. This style, characterized by its solemnity, features Spanish black, with accentuated the rigidity and solemn expression who wear it. The ideal of women, in this case, you can see again family, parents here, and different sons. Two sons were priests, another with a similar dress, with a sword and the golden hilt, and another was a monk, as you can see over there. But the ideal of women's dress also reflect a clear connection with Spanish court fashion. The predominance of the black color also prevailed, symbolizing serious etiquette, accompanied by ornamental ensemble composed of jewels and embroidery, as you can see in the ejecutoria for Juan Suárez de Figueroa in 1620. The first identity, the king. The second identity, the noble families. The third identity that their iconography represents in the legal codices is that of the judges in charge of the trial. Their presence is not very common. It's really, really interesting because it's not usual in this kind of document. Only a few documents have this kind of representation. And we encounter them only rarely, always represented in a stereotypical manner. They appear seated in their courtroom seats, dressed in black, but without any decorative symbols, no symbols. In all cases, the context shows the moment of the discussion and debate among them, some of whom appear to be expressing their opinion, as shown by an extended finger. Look at this. Look at, for example, this case and the other one. It's an expression. They are speaking in the case. They are speaking in the tribunal to take a decision. But the difference between the other identities is, in this case, no symbols about the power or symbols about the rhetoric of the family. Finally, the fourth identity represented, even less common, is that of the witnesses represented in these cases. If you see another examples of the of this example, one more similar than the other, but I repeat, it's not common, it's not usual. In this case, it's very important because we can complete 4 identities in just one document. I told you the fourth and the last one identity is the representation of the witnesses presented in the same case according with the rule. Men who don't belong to the local nobility, but who know the origins of the family requesting recognition of their privileged social status. You see, different, depends the case. There are some official documents with 3 or 4 representation or more, depends the difficulty of the case. Men of various occupations, merchants, farmers, carpenters, all introduced with their name, age, and place of origin. In the text, you can read different characteristic of the biography of these people, where they work, what is the name, the age. So a lot of information of this kind of people. But in this case, the representation are in a small vignette with little symbolic pretension and with absolute simplicity in their clothing. No symbols, no good dresses, no a lot of information about the power because they had not. In the same way as the previous ones, they are showing in an attitude of wearing questions. So the gesture of extending a finger confirms their attitude of participating in debate of the cause. You see, for example, all of them with the hand and the finger standing in different directions, showing the importance of the speaking. In conclusion, handwritten legal documents written between the 16th and 17th centuries in Spanish territory offer us a rich variety of identities that coexist within a single codex. I need to include more examples. I need to include more examples to explore more collections, but with the many examples consulting, we can affirm that a concept of identity requires a specific form of representation between kings, in this case, nobles, the second picture, judges, the third, and witnesses, the fourth. In all cases, represent the process of the cause, the process of the rule, but the representation is very different, so we can conclude the importance of this kind of document to continue the research and to compare more options to have the variety of this kind of images. So I told you this is only the beginning of the research to complete with more examples. But I would like to share with you, because I think it's a good idea to introduce our research in these forget documents along the history, because include very rich options to continue our investigations. So thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question about this research, I have the opportunity to answer you. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much, Jaime, for this fascination and rich presentation. You have shown how these legal documents were also powerful tools of visual identity and social prestige. Well, we now open the Q&A session. If you already have any question, is now the moment. No. Bueno, pues yo, yo sé que tengo algunas preguntas, Jaime. Me ha parecido muy interesante. La investigación era algo que yo desconocía por completo. Y voy a hacer, yo he ido apuntando algunas cosas. Seguramente serán preguntas, no sé si tendrán respuestas, o si serán a lo mejor más llevadas a mi terreno, que es el ámbito específico de la historia. Por tanto, te pido disculpas desde ya si es así. Pero me ha interesado particularmente cómo, bueno, pues estas cartas ejecutorias combinan texto jurídico, ¿no?, con unas imágenes muy elaboradas, ¿no? Entonces, yo quería profundizar un poco en la intrahistoria de estas cartas ejecutorias. Y lo quería hacer primero preguntándote, ¿hasta qué punto crees tú que influía en la percepción social? Es decir, una vez que este documento se muestre para diferentes usos, porque has mostrado, por ejemplo, que su utilidad era la exención fiscal, ¿no? Pues, ¿hasta qué punto esa decoración, esa ornamentación de estas cartas ejecutorias influía en la percepción de ese documento? ¿En qué contextos también se podía mostrar? O incluso se me ocurre si conoces algún caso de rechazo precisamente porque no se trata del documento legal. O sea, entiendo que esto hace referencia a una sentencia judicial de la Chancillería de Valladolid o de Granada, pero no sé si sabes, si conoces algún caso que paradójicamente y precisamente por la ornamentación se haya rechazado. No sé si conoces el caso. Y luego también, bueno, las imágenes estas de la representación del rey me han parecido una maravilla, sobre todo esa de Pedro de Guzmán con el retrato de Enrique IV, con el dedo índice, con la vara de mando. Bueno, me ha parecido increíble. Y quería preguntarte, relacionado con esto, ¿cuál crees tú que es la finalidad de incluir la representación del monarca en estas cartas ejecutorias? Es decir, ¿simplemente dar más autoridad a la carta ejecutoria o también protección, legitimidad del linaje? Es decir, no sé qué sensación te da, porque también has hablado de un cambio, que primero se representa al principio, luego al final. Es decir, ¿Realmente cuál crees tú que es el objetivo de la familia de encargar al artista o al miniaturista que incorpore una imagen del rey? Y luego, relacionado también con esto último, yo si no me paras, yo sigo, me interesa mucho quién elige las imágenes. Es decir, entiendo que es el propio noble el que se dirige a un artista, pero más allá de eso, ¿quién elige las imágenes concretas? Es decir, ¿es el particular interesado el que dice específicamente los detalles que tiene que incluir esa carta ejecutoria? ¿Hasta qué punto tiene libertad creativa el artista a la hora de diseñar esas miniaturas, esas orlas? No sé si has podido también, a lo largo de tu trayectoria, pues bueno, pues conocer un poco cuál es el proceso de crear estas imágenes que acompañan a las cartas ejecutorias una vez que se ha creado el documento escrito, que es la base.
Vale, pues intento contestarte a tus tres cuestiones. Empiezo por la primera. Si ves que me salto algo, me lo puedes indicar. Te referías a la importancia de estos documentos iluminados y qué pretensión, más allá de la normativa que permitía incluirlos en la casta privilegiada, en el estamento privilegiado, y por tanto estar exentos de esa fiscalidad o de recibir soldados en sus viviendas, como era costumbre en los pecheros, ¿no? Por tanto, el primer gran beneficio que tenía el documento era vincularles al estamento privilegiado. Podían haberse, diríamos, quedado satisfechos con el documento inicial archivado y por tanto ratificado en las chancillerías. Sí, pero claro, cuando en el siglo XVI, y de ahí la importancia del siglo XVI y no del siglo XV, que también, pero sobre todo en territorio castellano, el siglo XVI se va a caracterizar por una movilidad territorial muy importante entre las diferentes ciudades. O sea, la población empieza a moverse en el contexto del desarrollo de las artesanías, del desarrollo de las ciudades. Y es verdad que aquellos que podían pertenecer a la hidalguía, al trasladarse de Burgos a León, perdían esa biografía histórica que les reconocía en sus lugares de origen. Por tanto, lo primero que hacían las entidades locales, como estamos evidentemente incluso en el presente, es llamar a la puerta para cobrarte los impuestos. Por supuesto, no te reconocían como noble porque no pertenecías históricamente a ese contexto social. Eso implicaba ir a la Chancillería a pedir certificación de tu nobleza, que ratificada la sala de hijos de Algo, pues lo que te facilitaban es ya la seguridad de que lo eras, de que eras hidalgo, ¿no? Pero tú necesitabas un documento que certificara para ti y para tus venideros que tú lo eras y que eras capaz de demostrarlo a través de un elemento simbólico. ¿Por qué iluminado? Porque, y aquí tenemos la relación con la nobleza o con la aristocracia de la Edad Media, de finales de la Edad Media, y es la costumbre de poseer códices iluminados como objetos de lujo y objetos identitarios de la alta aristocracia. Por tanto, ese lazo del códice iluminado que a finales del XV va a representar la alta nobleza o la realeza, se toma como paralelo a la hora de un objeto, fijaos, que estamos en el siglo XVI o en el siglo XVII, que podían haber hecho uso de la imprenta. Y sin embargo, este tipo de documentos nunca se van a hacer de manera mecánica, solo manufacturada, porque te lleva a la identidad de un objeto antiguo que te lleva también a interpretar la antigüedad de tu linaje. Por tanto, tiene un valor simbólico que se le pueden buscar múltiples vértices para comprender el motivo por el cual se requerían en abundancia este conjunto de códices iluminados. He dicho que es muy difícil hacer un estudio completo, por la razón que expresaba. La mayoría de estas piezas siguen en propiedades privadas, en colecciones particulares. Cada vez van saliendo más. De hecho, todavía en la actualidad, en subastas nacionales e internacionales siguen saliendo, porque hay familias que se van desprendiendo en los últimos años de estos códices. De ahí la importancia de intentar hacer el mayor acopio posible de imágenes para completar una investigación que necesita de muchos ejemplos para sacar conclusiones. La otra pregunta que me hacías es al respecto de la imagen del rey. En los inicios, desde finales del siglo XV, que ya hay cartas ejecutorias, pero que son muy, muy simples, incluso algunas no tienen el formato de códice, tienen el formato de documento rodado, de la tradición medieval, ¿no? Entonces era un pergamino de grandes dimensiones donde se exponía la resolución de ese caso judicial. En el momento que asumen el formato de códice, se mantiene al principio la introducción del rey en la primera letra capital como elemento introductorio. Pero finalmente, la tradición que se mantuvo prácticamente hasta la extinción de estos códices es que el rey aparezca al final, por una razón sencilla, porque al final del documento está la disposición. Y en la disposición es el rey el que dice hágase. Y si recordamos, desde ya época de Alfonso X el Sabio, allá donde no está el rey, su imagen es el rey. De ahí los sellos. La imagen del rey es el mismo rey, en ausencia de éste. Por tanto, está utilizando una tradición medieval que se mantiene incluso a finales del siglo XVII, incluso pues, posterior al siglo XVII con el siglo XVIII, pero ya es cierto que en cierta decadencia. Por tanto, la imagen del rey es muy importante y lo es en esa disposición final, ratificando que lo que hay ahí es de cumplimiento obligatorio por todas las partes. Por tanto, es un documento que no solamente está refutado por lo que se archiva en las reales chancillerías, sino porque el documento mismo con esa imagen pretende, de aquella manera, identificar la oficialidad y legitimidad de lo que representa. Y la tercera pregunta respecto a los modelos es interesantísima, porque por un lado, y ahí radica el desprecio, el olvido, no sé si utilizar la palabra desprecio, pero sí el olvido del estudio de estos códices que han sido apartados de la historiografía, en particular de la historia del arte, no sé si tanto desde la historia o desde la diplomática o desde el ámbito legal, pero desde la historia del arte, las cartas ejecutorias y su decoración iluminada han sido muy poco estudiadas. Incluso se llegó a justificar en la primera mitad del siglo XX el que no se estudiaran porque carecían de valor estético o valor artístico. Yo reivindico que evidentemente nos vamos a encontrar con obras de hechura más pobre y otras de, por supuesto, elaboración mucho más intelectual. Pero en definitiva estamos asistiendo a la evolución estética de un contexto histórico que tiene como escenario la necesidad del documento por parte de una clase social que reivindica su identificación como miembro de la clase privilegiada. ¿Qué ocurre? Que esos modelos, en la mayoría de los casos, porque evidentemente hablamos de hidalgos, en la mayoría, que son incluso económicamente hablando o socialmente más pobres que los propios no hidalgos de la burguesía comercial y a veces no tienen para pagar grandes cantidades, que es lo que supone un documento de este tipo. Por tanto, ¿cómo se abarata la producción? Pues realizando una producción seriada. Y muchas de las iconografías son seriadas. Se terminaban incluso antes de saber a quién iban dirigidas. Por tanto, hay muchas que son prácticamente idénticas. Lo único que hay que cambiar es el texto. A diferencia de la tradición manufacturada de los códices iluminados, que es primero se escriben, después se iluminan y se terminan con encuadernarlos, aquí ocurre que aparece al revés. Primero se iluminan, ya tenemos la carta ejecutoria elaborada y simplemente hay que rellenar porque son textos repetidos y ciertamente estereotipados, ¿no? Salvo contadas excepciones. Y en esas contadas excepciones es donde hablamos o podemos interpretar de familias con una posibilidad económica superior que reclaman una mayor personalización del trabajo de ejecutoria de hidalguía. Y también ahí lo notamos en la calidad. No es lo mismo encargar la obra a un taller que encargarla a un artista que se ha especializado en la miniatura. Y es de ahí donde podemos ver esas diferencias también en cuanto a calidad artística y estética. Muchos modelos de estas segundas cartas ejecutorias más elaboradas sí son decididos por las propias familias, porque lo interpretamos de la siguiente manera. Antonio de Guzmán lo que va a pedir es que cuando aparezca arrodillado ante un santo, sea este el de su propio nombre, San Antonio. Y si su hermano es Andrés, aparezca acompañado también del apóstol Andrés. Por tanto, vamos a ver cómo se personalizaban, o incluso en la imagen que hemos visto con la familia arrodillada ante la imagen mariana, las advocaciones locales iban tomando apariencia en este tipo de documentaciones. Así que nos vamos a encontrar dos tipos. Aquellos seriados, de una técnica un poco más amateur, un poco más naif, y aquellos personalizados que también está explicándonos un valor social, un valor económico, un contexto familiar, que en todo eso es un cóctel donde nosotros tenemos que hacer el análisis final, ¿no? Cómo ir sacando conclusiones de lo que estamos viendo para lo que necesitamos grandes comparativas o grandes ejemplos, un gran número de ejemplos para poder ir distinguiendo, ¿no? Unos y otros formatos o unas y otras variantes. Así que espero haber respondido a tus tres preguntas.
Sí, sí, sí. Y retomo, si me lo permites, ya acabo ya, pero esto último que hablabas de las comparativas, ¿hay paralelismos en otras monarquías europeas? Es decir, de este concepto de cartas ejecutorias con esa ornamentación.
Bueno, pues es interesante tu pregunta porque siempre me la he hecho yo y está pendiente a que hagamos esa internacionalización, en particular con Portugal.
Mm.
En Portugal me consta que hay algo parecido, que hay documentos un poco semejantes, pero me consta ver el contexto real de cada una de esas cartas, cómo están distribuidas la estructura documental, qué tipo de iconografía aparece, si hay un paralelo. Es el camino siguiente. Es verdad que no podemos parar aquí y sobre todo en el contexto peninsular me interesa mucho seguir ahondando en el ámbito de la corona de portuguesa porque será un eslabón muy interesante para conectarlo. Desgraciadamente no puedo contestarte con certeza porque no he seguido todavía ese hilo conductor, pero en la mente de esta investigación está continuar, ¿no? En ese proyecto internacionalizador, a ver en los archivos portugueses, principalmente en los archivos públicos portugueses de la Torre do Combo, a ver qué me puedo encontrar en los próximos tiempos, no sé decir meses o años, para completar este proyecto.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias y mucho éxito en esa comparativa, si es que finalmente se puede llevar a cabo, porque tiene visos de éxito, eso desde luego. Vale, pues si no hay ninguna pregunta más, yo creo que podemos cerrar aquí esta última sesión. Y bueno, recordando quizás que el próximo jueves, ¿verdad? El jueves 27 a las 4 tenemos esta tabla redonda final con todos los participantes del segundo módulo de esta quinta edición de los Connecta de la Mitjana. Pues Jaime, muchas gracias una vez más por tu maravillosa ponencia. He aprendido mucho y espero que los asistentes y aquellos que lo puedan ver lo hagan también, porque como tú dices es algo que creo que no es muy conocido, incluso entre los modernistas me atrevería a decir que no es muy conocido y desde luego es muy interesante. Muchas gracias, Jaime.
Muchas gracias. Hasta
Bueno,
pronto.
hasta luego. Adiós.